At this point, Leandro and myself would like to thank all the faculty for excellent and pointed presentations and to open the floor to dialogue, question and answers. And we'll take the first question that came from Mexico by Fabiola. And I hope then that you can see the questions and maybe will be appropriate for you to take a try and see how can we address your question. Dan?
Yeah, Dean, thank you. And yes, that's an interesting question. So the question's in two parts. It's really the use of, I think the question is around how we use references in our publications. And then the second one is synthesis capacity. So I might need to come back and get the questioner to explain quite what they meant by that. But in terms of the use of references, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? I've always found with students, they take a bit of getting used to this concept. It's a little bit like, I don't know, it's a little bit like health and safety. People tend to do something and then right at the end of the operation, they think, well, what are the health and safety issues? They treat health and safety sometimes as a tag on at the end and think about how they should then apply it. Whereas actually, as engineers and scientists, we ought to use good health and safety practices throughout everything we do. And it's kind of the same with references. We shouldn't decide, oh, I'm going to write a publication now, write the paper, and then think, how do I reference this? We really ought to be thinking about what references should I be doing before we even start the work that's going to end up being the publication. So if it's something simple, and Lou's presentation talked about, you know, how do we write things up when it's something as simple as a new way of working or a new QA. Well, if you're doing a project to bring in a new quality assurance program in your hospital, there'll be things that you go and read before you do that. What standards are you working to? You know, what ISO standards, what international standards, what quality management systems, what harmonized standards, what sort of things are you trying to measure? You'll have to go and find the references there. They might not be scientific references in journals, they might be published by governments, they might be published by various other people, but you will go and look at documents before you do that project. If you're doing a huge research project, looking at a whole new way of doing something with new science and new engineering, you'll do a lot of fact finding, you do a lot of research, literature research before you start. So you'll identify all those references there. So the key to referencing, I've always found in publications, not to write the publication and then go and look for references to support it. It's to do the work and use the references to support the work, and then you've naturally got a list of references when you come to write it. In terms of synthesis capacity, are we talking here about evidence synthesis? Because that's a piece of work that is quite specialist, and not all of us will have the capacity to do that. We're fortunate in Nottingham in that we have an organisation called CETA. CETA is the Centre for Healthcare Equipment and Technology Adoption. And one of the things CETA does is it finds evidence to help support the introduction of new technologies. So we've got a lot of skills and expertise in evidence synthesis there. That's not readily available in every hospital, I guess. So I think you are going to struggle with that. It's the discipline in its own right. And my advice would really to come back to something I said during my presentation, would be to collaborate with people who do have the expertise and the capacity to do evidence. So I'm not sure if I quite captured the essence of that second part of the question, but I hope I got somewhere close.
Thank you, Dan. I think your answer was very clear, as usually. I have a question for Dan or Nicolas or Yadin, if you like to answer, which is the following. Often in engineering, and then obviously also in biomedical and clinical engineering, some people don't publish because they think what they are doing is not innovative enough, is not relevant, is not challenging, is not novel. Probably one of the things that we should clear for the attendees, especially early career, if any, is within the fact that engineering is a very broad topic. So sometimes we work on very fundamental science, and in the other cases we work on applied science. And people tend to think that publication is only in this part of the range, fundamental science, while I believe there's value in communicating anything we do in engineering. So what's your opinion on that? What do you think we should do in order to encourage engineers to publish all a broader range of the work they do?
Who's picking that up?
Whoever wants.
Well, I'm talking, so I'll pick it up to start with. That's an excellent question, Leandro, and it's a little bit touches on something I was saying in my presentation about confidence, and people do exactly think like you described there, that what they've done is not that important, it's not that clever, nobody really wants to know what we. And that is I think one of the challenges that we need to get over, and I think there are two things that I would try to address on that. The first is around identifying the best journal or the best forum in which to try to publish. If you're part of some huge multi-center collaborative study doing some brand new blue sky technology and converting that into something that we can use in healthcare, then you'll be thinking about publicizing in fairly highbrow academic journals, and that would be intimidating for your average clinical engineer, because we don't generally get our publications into something like that, and that's where we would come to collaboration with academics who perhaps are using that. There's a huge amount of value in the much smaller projects that we do in hospitals up and down the country, all around the world, and getting that into the forums. The right forum that the people we want to read want to learn about what we've done is hugely important. And Nicholas mentioned this in his presentation. It's about knowing your audience. So if you've done something which enables you to, I don't know, service electrodiathermy machine more safely, more quickly, more cheaply, then other clinical engineers around the country, around the world, will want to hear about that. And so it's a case of finding the best journal, the best forum to publicize that. And I'm on the editorial panel, so I abuse my position here to give a plug for the Global Clinical Engineering Journal. That's exactly the place that those sorts of things need to go. And you don't have to be, inventing the new MRI to publish. If you've just done a little project that helps clinical engineers, technologists do their current job better, then publish that, because lots of people around the world want to hear about it and can learn about it and can do their jobs a bit better. So it's horses for courses. Find the right forum, find the right journal, and the Global Clinical Engineering Journal is excellent for most clinical engineers to aim at.
Thank you, Dan. Can I ask Nicholas to add to that? Or?
You may. Yeah, but I cannot start my video, but doesn't matter. I will agree with Dan what he said. The big questions are not. We are appreciating good papers in very simple applied approaches, and I think we should find out what is the right audience for that. Whatever we decide to publish, the first thing is to have, first of all, the right overview of what is happening around the world in this subject. Because at the end, you're going to make some conclusions based on comparisons between, for instance, applied issues that you are addressing, like management of medical equipment, that it gives results. This is welcome to be published as a good practice under a certain context, under certain circumstances, and linking references are very important to have a good overview of what is going on, and then think about these references, how will be used. You are going to discuss your results and have your conclusions. And coming to the question of Rosanna, I think that planning is very important because it's a paper. We will start writing because we want to write, but then we're discouraged or we postpone, etc. So plan is very important, and a good pressure for a deadline. This is usually the deadline of a paper submission in a conferences. In the conferences, we have deadlines, so we are obliged to finish the paper. A conference is a good trial because the papers are more easy to be accepted, and the young students are very much encouraged to start with conferences. Then, if you follow your plan, you can arrive to a good result at the end. This process, quality of the papers, because as you know, if you plan well, the results are on time and at the same time are much better fitting to the purpose of. I hope I answered one way to the questions.
Thank you, Nicholas. Leandro, I want to, in a way, ask you, how did you approach your question with regard to Benin? My perception would be that knowledge of scientific and engineering practices is not at the same level around the world. So what we might think is routine, non-innovative prospect might be a new procedure, new practice in an area like Benin, perhaps. And maybe there is a reason to publish, depends on your locality more than on worldly benchmarking. So I wonder if you can help think us together if local awareness and knowledge might be another motivation to get publication, even though in other parts of the world this is not considered new knowledge. I'm not hearing you, Leandro.
Oh, sorry. I lost connection for a while. Can you repeat your question, please?
Sure. I was thinking about taking your question and what Dan is saying, and Xiaomin saying is from China. We solve routinely daily problem. It's not innovative. It's not new knowledge. So how can we turn that into something that is publishable? And I'm saying, with your experience with Benin, there are localities where knowledge is at different level than in the UK and the US. And that might be another motivation to publish.
Indeed, Yadin. And thank you for this question or comment, which I think it's really relevant. I mean, we saw before the reference to Edison. I don't think Edison was working on science fiction problem. I mean, he wanted to create light in everywhere at affordable price and make it happen, you know, in the most easy way possible. So Edison was just solving daily problems. He was not throwing himself beyond the moon in order to deliver good science and innovation. So Edison was solving everyday problems. As Dan said, in hospital, I don't want to say we are full of problems, but we are challenged every day to do better and better, which is a way to overcome daily problems by themselves. When I work with scholars from Africa, Benin in particular, I learn a lot because they come with daily problems that probably we don't have in our everyday life in Europe. and they require proper engineering, because engineering is probably challenged probably when the resources are limited, as we have seen in the best hospital now because of COVID. Suddenly, we all were in need of resources. We all were in shortage of time. We all were in shortage of medical devices or consumables. So I believe sometimes even the most simple problem and the most simple innovation may be relevant for a reader if you are capable to describe them your mindset, which is the method. Sometimes we don't see the value of what we do because we are lost into the everyday activities, or because we do that every day. But for other people, even just being explained what it was our mindset, what it was our approach, our methods, how we systematically analyze a problem, this is very relevant, because this can inspire other people to solve similar or even different problems in their own settings. So nothing of what you do in everyday life is not relevant if you are an engineer, because it can inspire solutions even in different fields or in the same field elsewhere. Probably what we should do better is to learn to name what we do. So probably if I have to make a comparison between what we do and our clinicians do, we're not able to give a name to the methods we use daily. Actually, they do. The way they cut a patient or they close a patient, they have different names for it. They can know and name the methods, and naming the method is the first thing to then publish it. And so that's probably where we could improve as clinical engineers, learning how to communicate what we do, giving it a name. What are the methods we are using to analyze a novel problem? What is the method we use in order to share information? What is the method we use in order to solve a problem? And that's something that probably we should try to do better, if I have to say something. But I want to escape your question. My answer is Edison was not solving abstract problem. He was solving everyday life problems, and he's Edison. So if he did that, we can do that.
Excellent view. I appreciate your comments. We're getting to the point where we need to bring the webinar to a closure. I would like to thank the faculty for superb presentation and for the time they put into being here with us today. I also would like to thank Caliroy Staviano for keeping us going in spite of Zoom difficulty, dropping video, sorry Nicolas, and sometime audio, sorry Leandro. But before we close, I would like to float an idea that I did not consult with the faculty, but would like to hear the response. What we saw today is there's no question that there is a need for clinical engineers to publish, but there are barriers and challenges in front. You all identify those and provide maps how to go around or through them. Very well done. But perhaps what we miss is the creation of a mentorship group. People like you, like the faculty today, and volunteers that already express desire to help. Fabiola from Mexico, Elliot Sloan with eHealth and telemedicine from US, to join this group that is online today, and any other members out there in the world that are listening to us, to volunteer and become a mentor that will meet maybe every 2 months and just be available to help novices in the field, to help clinical engineers to put their work together and just give ideas, feedback, and encouragement. I think that if we can create a clinical engineering publication task force with group like this faculty and the other volunteer that I mentioned, I believe it will make a difference in the future of our field. And I like just to go around and see what type of comments I get from faculty as well as people who are listening to us today. And with that, after that, we'll close the webinar. So let's start with Leandro. We'll go to Nicholas, then Dan.
Well, I don't remember the last time I said, so every time Yadin calls, I say yes, there is no other way around it. The only other thing I want to add is that you will never publish if you don't read. So I really started publishing effectively when I started reading papers, when I really understood that it was useful for me to read paper, because then this was where I learned what from my job could be relevant for other people. So if you don't put yourself in the shoes of the reader, you will never do that. And to do that, you need to be a reader. Excellent. And after that, yes, Yadin, anytime.
Thank you. Nicholas, you're on mute.
Okay. Yadin, I agree. I think we could also government try to address the problems of the clinical engineers. As Leandro said, I cannot say no, but point of view, if we always say yes to your ideas and Tom's ideas, I think we will not have time for us anymore. A pity you cannot see me, but
we don't want to see the blue water in the boat.
I'm afraid a little bit. I'm afraid a little bit of nice ideas in any case.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, I was trying to think of a way of saying no in a waggish way, but I can't think of. I think this is a splendid idea. I was thinking something similar when Ilya was talking, because he was keen to say that one of the things he encourages is for himself to be a mentor of his staff in his own facility who are trying to write. But he said, if you can't find a mentor, then if your boss can't be your mentor, go and find one. And I thought, well, that might be quite tricky for some individual somewhere in the world. But if there's a resource that we can provide where we can allocate mentors from a group like you've just suggested, Yadin, then I think that would be a splendid idea. Wholeheartedly support.
Thank you. And Tom, how about you?
Well, first of all, Nicholas, you're still a young guy. You got a lot of time left, brother. Secondly, I want to say a word about Rosanna's question, planning. I was saying in an earlier meeting, some of you are not able to be a part of our board and collaborators yet, where we talked about on September 8th, there will be an opening for an abstracts for our September 2021 Congress, International Clinical Engineering Health Technology Management Congress in Orlando, Florida. And we believe COVID-19 will be contained such that can be face-to-face, although there will be a virtual component. My point is, September 8th, there's an opening for 2 months for abstracts until October 31. And we want all of you on the line today to submit. And we will help mentor you around that. And then Rosanna asked the question from Peru, how does planning, feed into being able to write an abstract in the next 2 months for a paper you can write and probably get published? And the answer is, what's in your heart? What's your interest? What's your country's need that you're particularly drawn to? And probably for all of you, there's been an answer to that question in the last 6 months in the context of COVID. So that's what you should write about. Let's talk more. Back to you, Yadin.
And the question about joining the mentorship.
Yeah, I'm in.
Great.
I think I'm a slightly less young than Nick, so I'm in.
Very good. Leandro, thank you very much for sharing this webinar mentorship moderator with me. Appreciate, always joy to be with you. Faculty, once again, thank you very much. All the participants, keep being listener, keep thinking about writing, keep joining us. We're looking for better, brighter day post-COVID-19. and I wish you to be safe and productive.
Yadin, I want to mention there were 15 to 20 countries online today, so a lot of interest.
Thank you.
Let me take this opportunity to thank Yadin on behalf of the Waller community for the great job you do every day and also in this occasion. Thank you, Yadin, really from the heart.
Bye-bye.
And thank
Bye.
all attendees at the time to listen to us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks, Kelly Roy.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Oh, bye.